first question is, does TSTT have the physical infrastructure to provide broadband services throughout the country at this time? I'm asking this question in light of the earlier lecture this morning by Dr. Sumatra Butta, that the emphasis globally is on broadband services. So if we are going to, let's say, mount this ICT drive, there must be the infrastructure in place to facilitate that drive. So at this point in time, could you tell us if TSCT has that infrastructure in place? If not, what is a likely time frame so that we can meet that particular objective to accommodate those broadband services? And thirdly, we talk about the services itself. This is a very important thing. To be competitive, your cost factor, your product itself must be reasonable. It must be competitive. It must be attractive. Is TSCT at this point in time looking at some pricing arrangement, whether in terms of a lump sum among the business people or as an individual, so as to encourage that sort of ICT drive that the country, or let's say the nation, will be looking forward to?
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Bell.
So, where is the network? What is the state of the network? And what are you going to do about it? That was kind of the question. The state of the network has been having significant investment in the last 3.5 years. The network, as you may know, for about 20 years was not invested very significantly, particularly in the south and in the east. So what we're doing is we actually announced, and we were the first in the Caribbean to announce WiMAX. WiMAX, which by April of next year will be providing between 2 and up to 10 megabits, depending upon what you pay, for customers. It will also come in on a prepay format. Actually, it's on a prepay format now, but it will be in a full prepay format. We are the only, you may recall that we are in competition. So competition is, your pricing is driven by competition. What we have done different from others is with this WiMAX is we are able now to provide prepay. And prepay is critical for penetration. I would say that by April of next year, we're going to be covering about 75% of the country. And when I'm talking about 75% of the country, you have to be careful not to cover areas where there's nobody. So I'm talking 70% of the population with that. At the same time, we have the Blink product on the broadband side, which can give you 10 meg. It's deployed pretty much across the country right now, with some limitations because of the cables. You may recall some of the cables are pretty old, so we've been investing on those as well. But we are really betting on the wireless side on that. Cost factors, we're in a competitive environment. Costs have come down and will continue to come down as that. One question you did not ask that I must tell you is we are working so that at some point soon you will be able to create your apps, and you'll be able to connect into the network, and you'll be able to sell the apps. Because what doesn't exist in Trinidad today is an application developers access. There is not even an application developers group, which I think is eminently necessary. So what we're planning to do is we're investing on this NGOS, and that NGOS is going to allow you to come in, and we'll be able to then bill on your behalf, which is very important in order to be able to create an industry.
Thank you very much.
Very good. I'm Simon Akwi. I'm a member of the e-Business Roundtable, and I guess this question is a question and comment to Senator the Honorable Mary King concerning infrastructure development around ICT. And I think the Minister of Finance at a luncheon last week mentioned there's an allocation of about $5 billion in the PSIP for the development of infrastructure as it relates to construction. And I think I would argue, and I think members of the Business Roundtable had made representation to the government around development of ICT as the infrastructure, whether it's through partnership with the providers, for example, access, or whether it's investment for the development of the efficiency and more tools, etc., for the public service to deliver better service, for example, like CT Connect. And I say that in the context of most people understand that you spend money to build a highway or to fix a highway, and most people don't pay. Well, generally, people don't pay to drive on that highway, but that highway is being provided by the state from the general fund, and that's infrastructure. Why spend in the 21st century? And if we're preparing ourselves for ICT development, I'm asking about a paradigm shift in terms of infrastructure development and looking at moving those funds, and of course there still need to be physical infrastructure development, but moving those funds to ICT type infrastructure development, connectivity, video conferencing, social networks, so that citizens can benefit from that infrastructure using the same funds and move away from the older type of infrastructure investments. And I think, to me, that is the paradigm shift that has to start at the planning level and then move down into the implementation through the various ministries.
So what's your specific question, sir?
So is that one way, or is the government looking at that as a way of development? And by the way, that's not only development for the sake of putting in place the infrastructure for private citizen use, but also to increase efficiency of the public service, as well as providing new tools and access to those tools for not only public service but citizens. So my question is the government thinking of moving in that direction, and is that part of the strategic plan?
Thank you very much.
Well, I don't think you really expect that the government will not provide the basic infrastructure that is now needed. The $5 billion that has gone to the PSIP is for roads and bridges and water, replacement of all the pipes and water. All of those things have to be done. They should have been done a long time ago. So that shift will not take place. That's a must. What we are actually doing is providing large amounts of funds to the Ministry of Public Administration to continue with its ICT development, and they have 3 or 4 other areas that are still not actually in place, which will be put in place. That will go on. But the development that I spoke about coming out of the National Innovation System, the government is committed to funding whatever we need when we have done our foresighting exercise. The foresighting exercise will take place probably over a period of 6 to 9 months, at the end of which we will have identified the technologies that we are going to take this country forward on, and the government is committed to those funds. The amount of funds, no, we are not in a position to tell you, but as we go, we'll be making our public statements.
Does that satisfy you still? Because I'd like to get you back on this, since you're a member of the e-business roundtable, and the e-business roundtable is part of the human infrastructure that is there to drive this thing. I mean, how comforted are you by that? How comforted are you by what is happening? What are the developments to move ICT to what we understand to be its place in continued national development?
Yeah, and I think it's just a recognition of the role of ICT, not only in infrastructure development, and don't get me wrong, and of course there needs to be constant investment in things like roads and bridges and so on. But I think certainly under the last government, I haven't heard it under the new administration with respect to a new highway, for example, a new highway system. And to me, that is not a forward step, because in providing a new highway system, in other words, additional roads, not supporting the infrastructure or replacing or maintaining the current road infrastructure, but providing new highways is a recognition that you are not going towards having people communicate with one another without physically moving to that space. In other words, I need to get a new driver's license, or I need to get services from government, for example, and instead of doing that online, instead of it being provided to me by mail or by electronic format, I physically have to go down to the licensing division and drive there, and and therefore I need a new highway to get me there faster. So what I'm saying the old model of give me a new road to get there faster should be replaced by give me a new way to get that service much faster. And ICT, we believe, is the way to allow that. And also, it then fosters a whole mindset in the population, ICT developers, people using ICT as a tool, and people being more familiar and occurrent with the tools and the processes that are more 21st century than creating traffic jams.
Right. All right, thank you very much. We have another member of the cabinet in the audience sitting just a couple of seats away from me. She was shaking her head against something you were saying there. Minister, you want to tell me why you may be disagreeing with some of what he's saying?
Put me on this, but yes, the member of the roundtable, business roundtable, both are critical and they need to operate on parallel tracks. We need to have infrastructure, we need to have highways, but more importantly, we are also working on the fact that yes, citizens, we need to have citizens being able to stay home and access their driver's permit, apply for their driver's permit, their birth certificate, their passports, and that is what the Ministry of Public Administration is all about. And that is what we have been doing. As a matter of fact, we own the backbone where we are now generating electronic birth certificates for a long time now. And therefore, it's not one replacing the other or one displacing the other. We are looking at sustainable development. And sustainable development means development in all spheres of life so that to make our citizens extremely happy, with less stress, and therefore the roads are important as well, sir.
Thank you very much.
So I think we are working on all fronts.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Gold, did you indicate an interest in speaking?
Good morning, Nicholas Gold, TSL Group. I'm actually wearing a software developer's hat this morning as I speak with you.
Great.
And I'm addressing this question to the Senator, the Honorable Mary King. First of all, I'd like to pick up on the first question that was brought up by the gentleman over there regarding funding of entrepreneurs in the space of ICT. I know that most of you have probably heard me raise this issue before. We don't have any venture capitalists over here who support this initiative. Our banks, with the greatest respect to them, and I understand why it's done, will not support an initiative of taking an entrepreneur in the ICT arena and financing any venture because it's an unknown. So to do away or to just nonchalantly say that, you know, we have no industry, we have not developed in any form or fashion over here our ICT space, I think it's a little bit unfair. Fortunately for me, I happen to have a group behind me and I continue to write software, which is probably the love of my life from a business perspective. I do that at hours that are not meaningful to you. You're probably most of you are asleep between 3 and 6 in the morning. And I do it because that is how I tax my brain. But my software actually happens to be fairly successful, is used widely throughout the entire Caribbean, and we're looking to try and take it to another step. So mine would be a position more than a question, and that would be to see whether or not this new government can find a way to respond to the initiatives of that gentleman over there who has ideas, who probably has good understanding and good skills, but can do nothing with the ideas, and therefore we just cannot develop an ICT industry over here.
Thank you very much, Minister. But just before you speak, Minister, is Mr. Hawaii in the house?